You know that unnerving tingle you get when someone's staring at you in the dark? That sensation of being pinned by unseen eyes. That's how it started for me. Although, had I known what would follow, I'd have torn through the streets screaming long before my fear could catch its breath. It was an ordinary evening in Riverstone, or so it seemed. The spring air still clung to winter's chill, and the pedestrian fluency of the night had people cozying up inside, settled into their lull of television's glow or the scroll of their phones. Yet another North Korean hack called out the AM radio host, his irritation punctuating the murmur of diners calm in the Sunset Diner. I hunched over my coffee, squeezing another drop of caffeine to get me through the last few orders of the night. But as soon as he said that, every phone in the diner chirped in unison, including mine. The sound was the same generic alert tone you would expect for a severe weather warning, only this wasn't a forecast. It was much grimmer. Emergency alert, do not look at the moon. This is not a drill. Micro-focused on survival, like when you're hit with some primal understanding that a storm is much closer than you believed. I felt a frigid apprehension snake its way up my spine. Across the polished wood countertop, skeptical faces lit up in pale phone light, all glancing at one another with that brand of urban detachment I'd gotten used to in the city. There was an uncomfortable pause broken by laughter and the nervous jest of a Twitter prank gone viral. When Kathy, the waitress with the infectious smile and gum-chewing bravado, dismissed it as an elaborate ARG alternate reality game, I felt my tension ease a notch. She winked at me. People will believe anything these days, right? Like everyone else, we leaned hard into the disbelief, a cushion against the absurdity of it all. I continued my shift, noticing how many simply shoved their phones face down and returned to smeary plates and muted laughter. The message felt ridiculous, exaggerated, and surreal in a little town like ours, and any puff of concern was soon reduced to ash amidst the trivialities of the evening. But then the clock became indifferent, hungry for the witching hour, and as I wiped the last table, a haunting silence fell over the diner. It wasn't the kind of hush brought by the vacuum of closing hours, but the type that smothers. A weighted blanket slunk over the world. I remember Kathy standing stock, still at the window, her scrubbed demeanor dimming, face drawn to the spectacle outside as though she was unwillingly baptized into some horror. A crowd had gathered in the streets, barely moving, faces upturned. The moon hung above them like a malevolent eye, swollen and accented far beyond its usual silver luminescence, as if taunting us. Or maybe it was them. Us few that remained inside could sense it now. The air had changed. Each molecule darted and shivered with anxious energy, coiling around the room like a snake poised to strike. I swallowed hard, joining Kathy at the window, the realization tightening my chest. People, neighbors, some still clad in pajamas or clutching hastily donned jackets, stood motionless. I recognized many of them, folks I'd served countless cups of coffee to, friends I'd spoken to in daylight, each statue, still under the moon's glory, all refusing or unable to break its hold. Must be some promotional stunt, right? Kathy's voice faltered, her eyes wide with disbelief. Dread had crawled into her voice, seating itself next to the doubt, unwilling to leave easily. The light on our phones dimmed as the early minutes ticked past midnight, and yet more messages poured in from the group chats, some sardonic or skeptical, many of outright confusion. But among them, one image blurred in my mind, a snapshot taken hurriedly, a face illuminated against the moon whose eyes glowed with a dull emptiness I didn't want to recognize. Someone I didn't know who stumbled into the diner. Her breathing was ragged, eyes darting, fingers trembling as they clutched her phone like a rosary against some unholy specter. Her voice quivered over words barely formed as a sob broke her lips apart. I looked, I just glanced. They don't move. They won't talk. God help us, they're going to. But she couldn't finish. Her voice choked as she collapsed against a booth. The words hung there like an eternal whisper, burrowed deep into our collective subconscious until, eventually, they simmered down into an uneasy silence. Somewhere in the recesses of our minds, we pieced together the strangled syllables, answered in parts by texts from those across town who avoided the moon's gaze. A story emerged, a narrative no one wanted to believe. We couldn't afford to. Curiosity wrestled with preservation, and for me, it was easy to keep my eyes downcast, pretending all manner of fortitude. Yet all it took was a glassy misstep, a chance encounter with the reflective granite tabletop that nearly cost me my resolve. I caught a glimmer, a simple crescent of light refracted by a dew-stained window, and nausea swept over me like a rival wave hell-bent on my destruction. No, I'd remain inside. I tethered myself to my reflection in the copper highlights and dimmed brightness of burnt-out bulbs, carving out a space where I belonged amidst the strangers desperately typing mutual fears. My phone vibrated again, the ever-present relentless intrusion of communication demands. This time, a direct message from my sister. "Haven't you seen it? Come out. It's beautiful tonight." A dagger to my heart. Knowing she was somewhere out there in our childhood home across town, those all-consuming specters, arresting charm didn't sit right with me. My own mother's warnings, cautionary tales of something cosmic, filled my mind, coagulating into an unsteady resolve. If I let it, the enticement would be overwhelming. Kathy didn't speak another word as she stumbled back behind the counter, her posture as slackened as mine. We draped a thin veneer of armor between what transpired outside and our little bubble inside. But as I glanced longingly at the door, daring myself to venture beyond the threshold just to see if she was okay, panic trailed me like a desperate lover. In the shadows of Riverstone's dusk, where unmoving souls lingered naked to the moon's light, time halted in reverence to a celestial puppet master, holding strings and severing connections all in one disastrous chord. There was no returning to normal that night, no closing of proverbial curtains or humorous brush-off from this awkward play. The night trudged forward into an unsettling gray dawn. The moon slithered away without warning, a specter retreating back to celestial shadows, as those in suspended animation stirred, eyes blinking back to the conscious world, groggy and unaware of lost hours. But something was still wrong. Though they moved again, they didn't acknowledge each other. Faces slackened into a persistent, chilling serenity. Their eyes continued to drift skyward, glancing at no sun, no stars, only invisible ghosts that pulled at unseen strings. The moon still hung heavy over each of us in unimaginable ways far beyond its disappearance over the horizon. A lure we dared not follow, a call we refused to answer. For now, we wait for everything to make sense again. Tonight, the moon might beckon anew, will cast us back into its grand theater for another cosmic hushed assembly if we dare. But even in memory's shadow, whatever allegiance was bartered beneath its watchful gaze shall remain between it and them alone. I can pretend to forget, but the whisper of its light has etched itself onto my soul. And tonight, I'll keep my curtains drawn tight and my faith even tighter. Fear, you see, can be cyclical, and here in Riverstone, fear now lays dormant, nestled quietly next to hope under the imperial canopy. The luminous orb will return, and when it does, we'll be ready for the next act, or perhaps it's ready for us.